Okay, so the next thing we got to do is the arm rig. We've got the spine, neck and head. We have the legs done, so we just need to finish up here with the arms, and then the rig will be complete. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a new style of control, and I just showed how to make a different kind of control here. So I'm going to make a NURB circle here. I'm going to hit Control 1 just to isolate it, so that I'm not looking at all the other stuff. Okay, so I'm going to select that curve, duplicate it, Control D. I'm going to get my rotate tool, hold down J and rotate 90 degrees this way, duplicate that, hold down J and rotate 90 degrees this way. So as you can see, this is what I have here. So it's kind of a sphere of curves. Now we want to combine all three of these curves into one control, because right now there are three separate controls. You can see I can select each one separately from the other one. Okay, if you go in the outliner, right click and go to show shapes, or just shapes, you'll see that you get these little pluses next to the curves. And if you click open all three of these, you see that you have a NURB circle, and then underneath that you have a NURBS circle shape. Okay, so with any object in Maya that you can see in the viewport, it's going to have what we call the transform node, which is the node that holds all the translates, rotates, and scale information. And it's also going to have the shape node. The shape node is what determines what a thing looks like. Okay, so if we want to combine all these into one control, we need to take all the shape nodes from two of them and combine them with the shape node from the third one. Okay, so basically it's just a standard parenting relationship here. We have the transform node. As you can see, it says type transform, and then this one, if we put over, you can see it's a different thing. So we need to get all these two, shape 2 and shape 3, out from under these NURB circles and put them under the first NURB circle. That way they become a single object. Okay, now you can't just drag them up there. That doesn't work. You have to write a tiny little bit of code. So what we have to do is we're going to click on this shape node here, NURB circle shape 3, control click NURB circle shape 2, and then this time instead of selecting the shape node, we're going to control click the actual transform node of the first one. Then what we're going to do is, actually, because you can't see it in my recording, I'm just going to shrink my desktop here. So now you can see this mel bar right here, mel. Okay, we're going to type parent space minus R space minus S, and then hit enter. And initially, if this happens, everything disappears. That means we forgot one step. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to take all three transform nodes, and I'm going to freeze transformations. I forgot to do that. So do that, and then select this shape node, control click this shape node, control click that transform node, and again type in parent space dash R space dash S and hit enter. And now you'll see that those three shape nodes are all under the same transform node. So you can get rid of these two transform nodes. Now when you click on the object, it's going to select all three as if they are one. Okay, hit control 1 to bring everything back. And again, just like with my curved box, I'm going to move this out here, and that's going to be the one that I duplicate everything off of. And I can see now I can close this, and if I right click in here and turn off shapes, you'll see that it now looks like a single object. Okay, so that's our control that we're going to be using for the arms. Okay, do you have to do it like this? Absolutely not. You can use your curved box if you want to make your arm controls, but that's just a different way that you can make a control if you are so inclined. Okay, so I'm not going to expect that you have these. Just make some kind of control for the arms. Okay, so arm controls. What we need to do is duplicate that curved sphere that we just made. and I'm going to snap to my left elbow. Sorry, my left shoulder is what it is. Left shoulder. Okay, and just to make sure that everything is fitting correctly, I'm just going to show my robot here and make sure that this is nice and big to where it can be grabbed. Okay, so let's hide the robot. Select this, duplicate it, and actually before I duplicate it, what I'm going to do is color, set the color. So attribute editor. This time, now you can see because we have 3 shape nodes, we have circle shape 2, circle shape 4, circle shape, there's different shape nodes. So I'm going to go to the transform node, which is this one, and you know it's the transform node because all it translates and rotates and scales are in it. Go to display, drawing overrides, enable overrides, and we're going to use this top slider here. So for my left side controls, I'm using the bright red, so I just need to scroll until I get to it. There we go. See, now my control is bright red. I'm going to duplicate it, snap the duplicate to the other side, and for the other side we're using the bright green, so we're going to go find that bright green color. There it is. So now you can see that I have what I expect to have here. Okay, select both of these, freeze transformations, and I don't think there's any history, but you can delete history. So this is my left shoulder control. This is my right shoulder control. Okay, so we need to duplicate one for the elbow, one for the wrist. So take this one, Control D, hold down V and snap it. Control D, hold down V and snap it. So, and then do the same thing here. Control D, hold down V, snap it. Control D, hold down V, snap it. Now we probably want to shrink some of these down so they're not exactly the same size as the shoulder controls. And actually, before we do that, let's go ahead and rename this. So this one is the left elbow control. So just replace shoulder. And this one is the left wrist control. Okay. This one is the right elbow control. Oh, and get rid of the ones on the end here. And this one is the right wrist. And again, get rid of that number on the end. Did I do it on this side? Yes, yes. Okay. So wrist, elbow, shoulder, wrist, elbow, shoulder. And again, the new controls that you have, you want to freeze transformations on them. Okay, save your work. Okay, now the next thing we want to do, I'm going to select both. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to bring back the robot. I'm going to select both elbow controls and just scale them down just a little bit, just so that they're a little smaller than the shoulder control, then freeze transformations. Then select the wrist controls, scale them down a little bit as well to your preference, and then freeze transformations on those as well. Okay, I'm going to save my work. Okay, so again, I'm just going to hide my robot here. Okay, I'm going to make sure that everything is frozen, that there's no values in the channels here. Okay, then we want to attach all these controls to make them control the actual arm. Okay, so we need buffers. We need 6 buffers. So I'm going to deselect everything, hit Control G, then Control D 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I went one too far there. Okay, so I need a total of 6 empty groups, and I'm just going to copy and paste these names. So copy left shoulder control, and then put buffer on the end. Then copy right shoulder control and put buffer, and then paste it in here and put buffer on the end. And then, oh, I missed that one. And then copy left elbow control and put buffer on the end. Copy left wrist control, put buffer on the end. Copy right elbow control, paste it and put buffer on the end. copy right wrist control. Put buffer on the end. Okay, now obviously all those groups have their pivot points over here at the origin. We need them to be at their correct joints. So left shoulder control buffer, activate the move tool, hold down V, middle mouse drag, and snap it. Left right shoulder, middle mouse drag, snap while holding V. Left elbow, hold down V, middle mouse drag it to the elbow. Left wrist, middle mouse drag it to there while holding V. Right elbow, hold down V, middle mouse drag. Right wrist, hold down V, and middle mouse drag it to the wrist. So wrist, elbow, shoulder, shoulder. Okay, take the time to make sure you've got those snapped to the correct places. Select all those groups and freeze transformations. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. Oh, I accidentally hit the scale. Where is it? There. Okay, so if that happens, just right click here and break those connections. So now you can select those freeze transformations. Okay, so all the buffers are now positioned correctly. All right, so the next thing that we have to do is let me see, let me look at my notes here. And just to be sure, we want to make sure that our controls, and it looks like they should be lined up. So what we're going to do is select this shoulder control, shift select the shoulder joint, constrain, orient, no movement, that's good. So I'm going to select that. And let's see here, I got lost in my notes here. Let's do the next one. Select your elbow control, select your elbow joint, constrain, orient, do the same for the wrist. And you might have to select the wrist, you may have to actually go into the outliner, because you can see that if I click here, it's gonna it can either select the claw 1, claw 2, or the wrist. You want to make sure it's the wrist. So I'm going to select my control and control click my wrist here and do a constrain, orient. Let's go the other side. Select the shoulder control, shift select the oh, wait a minute. Now what you'll notice here on the right side is that because these joints have a different orientation, you're going to have to do a little tricks here. So for the right side, you just need to be very careful. What you can do is select the shoulder joint, then select the right shoulder buffer and do a constrain, orient, and then open the buffer and delete that constraint. For the right elbow, select the right buffer, right elbow buffer, and then constrain, orient, and open up the buffer and delete the constraint. Then we want to select the right wrist. So again, be very careful. Right wrist buffer, constrain, orient, and then open up that buffer and delete the wrist. And then now we can just put all the controls into their buffers. So left shoulder control goes into the left shoulder control buffer. Oh, missed it. There we go. Right shoulder control goes to right shoulder control buffer. Just middle mouse dragging on there, and then with the right side you want to freeze transformations. You don't have to do that with the left side. Okay, so left elbow control goes into left elbow buffer, and it should still be zeroed out. Left wrist control goes to left wrist control buffer. It should still be zeroed out. That's good. Now the right side again, right elbow control buffer. Open up. You see that the right elbow control has numbers in there. Freeze transformations. Right wrist control goes to right wrist control buffer. Open this up and freeze transformations. Okay. Then select the right shoulder control, shift select the right shoulder joint, constrain orient, right elbow control, right elbow joint, constrain orient, right wrist control, right wrist joint, and constrain orient. Okay. And then we got to do some parenting here. So let's start with the left side. I'm going to take the left wrist control buffer and middle mouse drag it under the left elbow control. Okay, so this is what we have. Then I'm going to take the left elbow control buffer and parent it under the left shoulder control. So this is what we should have: left shoulder control buffer, left shoulder control, left elbow control buffer, left elbow control, left wrist control buffer, left wrist control. Do the same on the right side. Take the right wrist control buffer, parent it under the right elbow control. Then take the right elbow control buffer and parent it under the right shoulder control. Okay. So assuming that we did that correctly, if I rotate my left shoulder control, everything goes with it. If I rotate the elbow control, everything goes with it. And if I rotate the wrist control, we have control over the wrist. So that works on the left side. Let's do this side here. There we go. There we go. And that one works. Okay. So it's very important that you parent those correctly. Otherwise that won't work as expected. Now, obviously, as I rotate my arms, you'll see that my controls don't move with the rig. So we need to fix that. So we're going to take spine 4, the spine 4 joint. There it is right there. And then I'm going to come down here and control click the left shoulder control buffer and do a constrain parent. And then do the same thing for the right shoulder. So spine 4, and then control click the right shoulder control buffer, constrain parent. And now when I rotate the cog, let's see how my arm controls go. Now you'll notice that, of course, my eye controls don't move, and they're not supposed to. So that's what it's supposed to be, because the eye controls need to be independent. That way, if you want someone to, you want your robot to stay looking at something while their body's moving, then you can just put that thing on the object and they will always look at it. Okay, so that's the attaching the arm controls. Okay, so the next thing we got to do is the claw controls. So for the claw controls, I like to use my curved box again. So duplicate a copy, snap it to that wrist joint. And what I'm going to do is actually bring back my robot here. So let's see, it's under geometry, show that. So we need, basically we need this to be in 2 halves. So I'm going to, just like we made a control around the foot, we got to do the same thing around the claw. So, maybe something like this. And if my joints are getting in the way, I can just go here to show and go to joints to turn those off. And then move this up here and maybe, angle it, whatever. And it probably doesn't need to be so tall, so I can just bring this down just a bit. Maybe bring it up. Yep, there we go. I want to show my joints again and hide my robot. And I want to make sure my pivot point is right there at the wrist. So I'm going to hold down D and V and snap that to the wrist so that if I rotate it, it pivots from that wrist area. Okay. And then what I can do is then, so this is, we'll call this left claw 1 control. And then we can duplicate it. And this is left claw 2 control, the duplicate. And we're going to basically put a -1, or just whatever number is in the scale Z of this object, put a negative in front of it. So if it's 1, just put a negative in front of 1. And that's going to mirror it across, as you can see. So now we have 2 claw controls. Select both those controls and freeze them. Okay, so you want to make sure that you do that correctly. Now let's go ahead and color code these so they should be red to go with the color scheme that we have going on here. So there, and then enable overrides on this one and go with the red there. Okay, so now we need to just copy this over to the other side. The easy way to do it is select both of these controls, Control G to group them to themselves, Control D to duplicate that group, and then put a -1 in scale X, and you'll see that it just mirrors it across here. Then we need to open this group on this side. We need to put R for right side because these are the right side controls. Okay, and then we can take these two and Shift P to get them out of those groups that they were in, and then delete the groups, and then just select all 4 of them and then freeze transformations again just to be sure. Okay, and then of course these should be green, so we're going to go in here and find our green. There, oh, there it is. And on that one there, where'd it go? There it is. Okay, so there are our claw controls. Okay, we have 4 controls. We're going to need 4 buffers. So again, deselect everything, hit Control G, then hit Control D 3 times, 1, 2, 3 to duplicate them. So again, we're just going to copy the name here, paste it in here, and put buffer on the end. This one, copy, paste, buffer, copy, paste, buffer, and copy this, paste it, and buffer. Okay, so now we have buffers for each of those controls. And of course, the left buffers, I can just select both of them, hold down D and V, and just snap their pivot to that wrist. The right side ones, I can select them both, hold down D and V, and snap their pivots to the wrist on that side. Okay, so we need to orient constrain these buffers to their claw joints. Okay, now this is where it can get a little crazy, because again, you want to make sure you can see those claw joints. Right here's my left claws and here's my right claw. So, and I'm just gonna close that. Oh, and something that we forgot to do with the shoulder controls is just grab the shoulder control buffers and put them in the controls group. So right there they are. Okay, so I'm just going to, so I can see everything. There we go. Okay, so right now I'm actually going to close down the controls, and then I can see everything. So we need to, let's start on the left side here. We need to constrain the buffer to its corresponding joints. So I'm going to select left claw 1 joint, control click left claw 1, control buffer, constrain orient, delete the constraint. Left claw 2, control buffer, constrain orient, delete the constraint. Right claw 1, buffer, constrain orient, delete the constraint. And right claw 2, buffer, constrain orient, and delete the constraint. Okay, so these are, you'll see that some of them have 180 degrees in them, some of them don't. The ones on the right have 180, the ones on the left don't. Okay, so now that those are constrained, we need to put the controls in their buffers. So left claw 1 control goes to left claw 1 control buffer, left claw 2 control goes to left claw 2 control buffer, right claw 1 control, right claw 1 control buffer, right claw 2 control goes to right claw 2 control buffer. And then I'm going to select all the controls and just freeze transformations on them just to clean them up. Okay, so everything is aligned and perfect. Okay, now we can use the controls to control the claws. So left claw 1 control, select that first, then control click left claw 1, constrain orient. Do not delete this constraint. Left claw 2 control goes to left claw 2, constrain orient. Right claw 1 control goes to right claw 1, constrain orient. right claw 2 control goes to right claw 2 constrain orient. I'm going to select my left claw 1 control, get my rotate tool and rotate it. You'll see that it takes the claw joint with it. Do the same on the other side. Make sure it works. Yep, undo when you've tested it. Do the same on this side. Rotate it. It moves that joint. Do this one. Rotate it. It moves that joint. Okay, so now you have control over that. Okay. So you'll see that if I rotate at the wrist, if I select the wrist control and rotate it, my claws don't move with it. So what I need to do is then parent the left side buffer, so left claw 1 control, left claw 1 control buffer and left claw 2 control buffer. I'm going to parent, and I might have to expand my shoulder control buffers here. I'm going to parent both of these under the left wrist control. Then I'm going to take my 2 right control 1 right claw 1 control buffer and right claw 2 control buffer, select both of those, and middle mouse drag those under the right wrist control. So when I rotate my wrist, now you can see that my claws rotate with it. Let's check the left side. Same deal there. Okay, everything is moving together as it should. Okay, and then because those automatically got put in the controls group, when I rotate the whole thing, you see that my claw controls go with it. If I scale, everything scales. If I translate, yeah, everything moves. So it's just what we want. Okay, so just to clean up, what we need to do is let's go the shoulder, and so select shoulder control and then select the wrist control on either side, shoulder and wrist, and in the outliner again I'm using control to select them. These controls only need to rotate. Okay, so we don't need translates, we don't need scales, we don't need visibility. Right click on those, lock and hide selected. They only need to rotate. The elbow controls, this elbow control and shift select that elbow control, only need to rotate on the y-axis. So I'm going to select everything but the y-axis and right click and lock and hide selected. So I'm left with just the y-axis. That way the elbows can only rotate in y. I can't rotate them in z or x, because elbows tend to just rotate on one axis because it's a hinge joint. Okay, and then the claws, so I can select all 4 claw controls, and I'm going to hide everything except the rotate y as well. So rotate y, I'm going to hide everything except rotate y, lock and hide selected. So these again also just open and close in the y-axis. They do not rotate any other way. And then all the buffers. So all the claw buffers, the wrist, elbow, and shoulder buffers for both sides. Lock and hide everything. So lock and hide selected. And those are all gone. Okay, so that basically is the rig. Okay, we got everything rigged up as we need it. The next step, of course, will be skidding, but this rig is ready. Oh, and I forgot to color code my eyebrows, so I'm going to just go ahead and do that real fast. So this side is the red, and this side is green. Where's my green? Green is there. Okay, so just give it a once over, make sure everything works as expected, save your work. Okay, and then we'll go to skinning from here.